1. Let's talk about this 1985 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $8,500. This classic piece of American muscle is sporting a 305 V8 engine with tuned port injection, promising that raw power we all know and love from the 80s era of performance cars. With 165,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear this Camaro has seen its fair share of asphalt. But don't let that deter you. These machines were built to last. The seller's description paints a pretty attractive picture, labeling the condition as excellent. It's a two-owner vehicle with a clean title and up-to-date tags, which is always reassuring when dealing with older cars. The original yellow paint has been refreshed, maintaining that eye-catching look that Camaros are known for. It's sitting on a set of 16-inch mesh wheels, reminiscent of its Pontiac Trans Am cousin, adding a touch of style to its already iconic silhouette. Inside, you're greeted by a black interior, which is a classic choice for these cars. The automatic transmission makes it an easy driver, perfect for cruising down the boulevard or hitting the open highway. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. At 165,000 miles, you might be looking at some maintenance in the future. But for many of us, that's part of the joy of owning a classic car. The seller seems pretty confident in the Camaro's condition, even listing it at $9,900 OBO in their description, though the actual listing price is $8,500. This discrepancy might give you some wiggle room in negotiations, so keep that in mind. For those of you looking to dive into the world of classic American cars, or maybe add another to your collection, this Camaro could be a solid choice. It represents a significant era in automotive history, and with its reported good condition, it could be a great way to experience the golden age of muscle cars without breaking the bank. Remember, with any used car purchase, especially one of this age, it's crucial to see it in person, take it for a test drive, and if possible, have a trusted mechanic give it a once-over. Listen for any unusual noises, check for rust, and make sure all the electronics are functioning correctly. This Camaro Z28 could be your ticket to turning heads at car shows, cruise nights, or just on your daily commute. It's a piece of automotive history that's still attainable, and, with proper care, could be a joy to own for years to come. So, if you're in the market for a classic that combines style, performance, and that unmistakable 80s charm, this 1985 Chevy Camaro Z28 might just be the ride you've been waiting for. 2. Let's talk about this sweet 1970 Chevrolet Monte Carlo that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $15,000. This green beauty is a true survivor from the golden age of American muscle, and it's got some stories to tell. Under the hood, you've got the original 350 engine paired with a 350 turbo transmission, all matching numbers, which is a big deal for collectors. With only 65,000 miles on the clock, this Monte Carlo has plenty of life left in it. The seller's done some work to keep it roadworthy, including new disc brakes, calipers, rotors, and a new master cylinder up front. It's also sporting a 12-bolt rear axle, dual exhaust, and a fresh battery. Now, let's be real. This isn't a showroom-perfect car. The seller's honest about some minor rust in the rear quarter area, which is pretty common for cars of this vintage. The interior needs some love too, with seat covers and a headliner on the to-do list. But hey, that's part of the charm of owning a classic, right? On the plus side, the body is described as straight and solid, with good floor pans. It's rolling on new staggered 17 rims and tires, which probably give it a nice stance. All the moldings and emblems are intact, and there's a new windshield, which is always a bonus. The seller mentions it's an AC car but doesn't specify if it's working, something to check if you're interested. They describe it as an awesome daily driver and say it runs, drives, and stops, which is music to any classic car enthusiast's ears. At $15,000, with a clean original title in hand, this Monte Carlo could be a great project for someone looking to dive into the classic car world. It's got good bones, some recent mechanical work, and enough original charm to make it worth the effort. Just remember, with any classic car purchase, it's always best to see it in person, maybe bring along a trusted mechanic, and don't be afraid to ask questions. This Monte Carlo could be your ticket to cruise nights, car shows, or just some good old-fashioned Sunday drives. 3. All right, car enthusiasts, let's dive into this 1978 Buick Regal Limited that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $10,500. This classic American coupe is a real blast from the past, and it's got some interesting upgrades that might pique your interest. First off, we're looking at a black beauty with 88,000 miles on the clock. The seller's been busy with the suspension, replacing all the bushings with energy suspension urethane bushings, adding UMI2, lowering springs, and throwing on some new Beltec shocks. This setup should give the car a nice stance and improved handling. Under the hood, you've got a mostly stock 305 V8, but the carburetor's been upgraded to an Edelbrock AVS2. The seller mentions it runs great but could use some timing and carb adjustments, so keep that in mind if you're not mechanically inclined. On the plus side, it's a factory AC and cruise control car, and apparently the AC still works well, a rare treat in a car of this vintage. The exhaust has been upgraded with Flowmaster Original 40 mufflers, which should give this Regal a nice, throaty sound. The wheels are new and staggered, 18/8 in the front and 18/9.5 in the rear, which probably gives it a pretty aggressive look. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, which seems fair. There's one rust spot in the right rear quarter, but the rest of the body is reportedly very nice. That's not bad for a car that's over 40 years old, but it's something to check out in person. The seller's throwing in some extras too: factory wheels and tires, a limited slip differential, door pins, and a few other odds and ends. That's a nice bonus if you're into tinkering or want to keep some original parts. Overall, this Regal seems like a solid project car that's already had some work done. It's not perfect, it still needs a little love according to the seller, but it could be a great starting point for someone looking to get into classic American cars without breaking the bank. Remember, with any classic car purchase, it's always best to see it in person. Maybe bring along a trusted mechanic and don't be afraid to ask questions. This Regal could be your ticket to cruise nights, car shows, or just some good old-fashioned Sunday drives. 4. Let's talk about this 1985 Cadillac Eldorado convertible that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $6,900. This beauty is a true representation of 80s luxury and style, and it's got some features that'll make you sit up and take notice. First off, we're looking at a white stunner with only 88,600 original miles on the clock. The seller claims it's been used primarily for weekend rides and car shows, which explains the low mileage for a car of this vintage. That's always a good sign for potential buyers. Less daily wear and tear means potentially fewer headaches down the road. Now, let's talk about what makes this Eldorado special. It's rocking a white exterior with a power white top, complete with a glass back window, a nice touch that adds a bit of class and visibility. The boot is red, which gives it a pop of color when the top is down. And true to Cadillac form, there's plenty of chrome and gold emblems to catch the eye. Step inside, and you're greeted by a custom interior that's sure to turn heads. We're talking white leather seats, a red leather dash, and red carpeting. It's a bold color combination that screams 80s luxury. All the power amenities you'd expect in a Cadillac are present: power steering, power brakes, power windows, mirrors, and even a power driver's seat. Plus, you've got climate control and cruise control for those comfortable long drives. Under the hood, you're looking at an 8-cylinder engine, which should provide plenty of smooth power for cruising. The automatic transmission means easy driving, perfect for relaxed weekend jaunts or showing off at car meets. Now the seller describes the condition as good, which seems fair for a car of this age. However, as always with classics, it's important to see it in person and maybe get a trusted mechanic to give it a once-over. Look for any signs of wear or potential issues, especially in the convertible top mechanism and the custom interior. At $6,900, this Eldorado could be a great entry point into the world of classic luxury cars. It's got style, comfort, and that unmistakable Cadillac presence. Whether you're looking to cruise in style, turn heads at car shows, or just have a fun weekend ride, this '85 Eldorado convertible could be your ticket to classic car enjoyment. Remember, with any classic car purchase, it's all about doing your due diligence. Check it out in person, ask plenty of questions, and don't be afraid to negotiate. 5. Let's talk about this sweet 1966 Dodge Dart convertible that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $11,500. This little beauty is a trim model 270, and it's got some stories to tell. First off, we're looking at a car that's been loved and cared for. The seller mentions it's always been garaged, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. Under the hood, you've got the legendary 225/6 engine, known for its reliability and longevity. It's paired with an automatic transmission, making it an easy cruiser. Now, let's talk about the work that's been done. The seller's been busy keeping this Dart in good shape. We're looking at a rebuilt carb just this year, a rebuilt radiator in 2022, along with new brakes all around, including turned drums. The steering got some love too, with a new steering knuckle in 2022. They've also replaced the fuel pump and motor mounts in 2021, and even added a power brake booster with new brake lines back in 2010. The convertible top is power operated and works as it should, a big plus for a car of this vintage. The top and boot were replaced around 2005, and the seller says it's still in excellent condition. That's a testament to how well this car has been cared for. Inside, the door panels are all intact, and all the chrome trim is present. The seller's even throwing in some goodies like the OEM factory full wheel covers, factory service manual, original owner's manual, and a full custom car cover. Talk about a package deal. Now, let's be real. No classic car is perfect. The speedo cable broke about 6 months ago and hasn't been replaced yet. The odometer reads around 45,000, but true mileage is unknown. The interior could use some love too. It needs a carpet kit, and the front seat has some tears in the vinyl. But here's the thing, at $11,500, this Dart convertible could be a great project for someone looking to dive into the classic car world. It's got good bones, a lot of recent work done, and it's been well cared for. Plus, it's a convertible, which always adds to the fun factor. Whether you want to keep it as a cool cruiser with the reliable slant 6, or swap in a V8 for some extra oomph, this Dart has potential. Just remember, with any classic car purchase, it's always best to see it in person. Maybe bring along a trusted mechanic and don't be afraid to ask questions. This 66 Dart could be your ticket to sunny weekend drives, car shows, and the admiration of fellow classic car enthusiasts. 6. Let's talk about this 1955 Lincoln Capri that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $6,900. This big, beautiful piece of 1950s Americana is a sight to behold, but it's got a story that you'll want to hear. First off, we're looking at a coupe model with the odometer showing 80,000 miles, but the seller mentions it's rolled over, so we're dealing with some mystery mileage here. Under the hood, you've got an 8-cylinder engine, which was pretty standard for these luxurious land yachts of the 50s. Now, let's talk about the good stuff. The seller claims everything is original and complete, which is a big deal for collectors and enthusiasts. They've converted it to a 12-volt electrical system, which is a smart upgrade that makes the car more reliable and easier to maintain. The power windows, radio, and clock are all said to be working, which is pretty impressive for a car of this vintage. It even comes with a personalized license plate, a nice little bonus. But here's where we need to get real, folks. The seller mentions that the car was running until the end of last year when it stopped working. They've tried to fix it and even had others look at it, but no luck so far. That's a pretty significant issue that you'll need to factor into your decision. It could be something simple, or it could be a major headache. Without more information, it's hard to say. There's also some rust in the battery box, which isn't uncommon for cars of this age, but it's something to keep an eye on. Rust can spread, so you'll want to inspect that area carefully. On the plus side, the seller has a clean title in their name, which is always good to hear. They're also not interested in trades, so they're looking for a straight sale. At $6,900, this Lincoln Capri could be a great project for someone with the time, skills, and patience to get it running again. It's got that classic 50s style that turns heads, and if you can sort out the engine issues, you'd have a real gem on your hands. Remember, with any classic car purchase, Especially one that's not currently running, it's crucial to inspect it thoroughly or have a trusted mechanic take a look. Don't be afraid to ask the seller lots of questions about its history and the work that's been done. This '55 Lincoln Capri could be your ticket to the golden age of American automobiles, but it's going to need some love to get there. If you're up for the challenge, this could be the project car you've been waiting for. 7. Let's talk about this 1982 Chevrolet Corvette that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,900. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This one's a bit of a mixed bag, so let's dive in and break it down. First off, we're looking at a late C3 Corvette with only 66,000 miles on the clock, which is pretty low for a car of this age. The seller describes it as a beautiful car with a brand new paint job, and it's sporting a blue color that likely turns heads. A fresh paint job on a Corvette is always a plus, as it can really make these iconic curves pop. However, here's where we need to pump the brakes a bit. The seller has listed the condition as fair, which is a step below good in Craigslist terms. More importantly, they're upfront about the fact that the car has engine noise. Now, engine noise can mean a lot of things in the world of cars, none of them particularly good. It could be anything from a minor issue to a major problem that might require a full engine rebuild or replacement. The seller admits they're not a mechanic shop, so they can't provide more details on the engine issue. They're marketing this as a great deal for people who are familiar working on these. That's code for, this car needs work, and possibly a lot of it. On the plus side, it does have a clean title and an automatic transmission, which some folks prefer in a cruiser like this. Now let's talk price. At $9,900, it's certainly cheaper than many '82 Corvettes you'll find out there. But remember, you're potentially looking at some significant mechanical work. The seller even uses the word cheap in their description, which is a pretty clear indication that they know the car needs work. Here's the bottom line. If you're a skilled mechanic or know someone who is, and you've always wanted a Project C3 Corvette, this could be a decent starting point. The low miles and new paint job are definite pluses. However, if you're looking for a turnkey classic that you can jump in and drive right away, this probably isn't the car for you. As always, with any used car purchase, especially one with known issues, it's crucial to inspect it thoroughly or have a trusted mechanic take a look. Don't be afraid to ask the seller lots of questions about its history and the nature of the engine noise. This '82 Corvette could be a diamond in the rough, but it's going to take some polishing and potentially a fair bit of mechanical work to make it shine. If you're up for the challenge and have the skills or the budget to sort out the engine issues, it could be a rewarding project. Just go in with your eyes open and your expectations realistic. 8. Let's dive into this 1966 Lincoln Continental that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $11,500. This iconic piece of American luxury is a real head-turner, and it's got an interesting story to boot. First off, we're looking at a white sedan with those classic suicide doors that make the '60s Continentals so distinctive. Under the hood, you've got a V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, which was the standard setup for these luxurious land yachts. Now, let's talk history. This Continental is a two-owner car, which is pretty remarkable for a vehicle that's pushing 60 years old. The seller's father-in-law bought it in 1981 from the original owner, who was a close family friend. That kind of provenance is gold in the classic car world. The odometer shows 10,285 miles, but here's the catch: it only has 5 digits. The seller assumes it's rolled over once, which would put it at 110,285 miles. That's not bad for a car of this age, but as they admit, there's no way to know for sure. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. The seller describes the car as being in very good shape, which is promising. However, they're also upfront about some issues. The car hadn't been started for about 6 months until recently. While it did start right up, a good sign, it's got a miss at idle and probably needs a tune-up. That's not unusual for a car that's been sitting, and it's refreshing to see a seller be honest about these things. On the plus side, the seller mentions that the previous owner, their father-in-law, drove it occasionally and kept up with maintenance. That's music to any classic car lover's ears. Regular use and maintenance can make a world of difference in these old beauties. At $11,500, this Continental could be a great entry point into the world of classic luxury cars. It's got style, presence, and that unmistakable 60s cool factor. However, you'll want to factor in the cost of a tune-up and potentially some other maintenance after its period of sitting. As always with classic cars, it's crucial to see it in person if you're serious about buying. Check for rust, test all the electrical systems, and if possible, get a trusted mechanic to give it a once-over. Don't be afraid to ask lots of questions about its history and any known issues. This '66 Continental could be your ticket to cruising in style, turning heads at car shows, or just enjoying a piece of automotive history. It might need a little love to get it back to its former glory, but with its good bones and interesting history, it could be a rewarding project for the right enthusiast. 9. Let's talk about this 1979 Buick Regal that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $4,000. This late 70s cruiser might not be the flashiest ride on the block, but it's got some interesting features that are worth discussing. First off, we're looking at a white Regal with a 3.8-liter V6 under the hood. Now the seller claims it runs excellent, which is always good to hear about a car that's over 40 years old. However, let's take that with a grain of salt. Excellent can mean different things to different people, especially when it comes to classic cars. The odometer shows 200,000 miles, but the seller notes that it's rolled over. That means we're looking at a car with at least 300,000 miles on it, possibly more. That's a lot of road time, folks. On the plus side, it speaks to the durability of these old Buicks. They were built to last. Now here's where things get a bit confusing. The seller lists the drive as FWD, front-wheel drive, but the 1979 Regal was actually a rear-wheel drive car. This could be a simple mistake in the listing, or it could indicate that the seller, or their friend, isn't entirely familiar with the car. It's something you'd want to clarify if you're interested in the vehicle. The condition is listed as good, which is pretty optimistic for a car of this age with this many miles. Without more details or photos, it's hard to say if that assessment is accurate. You'd definitely want to see this one in person and give it a thorough inspection. At $4,000, this Regal is priced in the budget-friendly range for classic cars. The seller mentions that the price is negotiable, which gives you some wiggle room if you're interested. Here's the bottom line. This '79 Regal could be a decent project car for someone looking to dip their toes into the classic car world without breaking the bank. It's not going to win any Concours d'Elegance competitions, but it could be a fun weekend cruiser or a learning experience for a budding mechanic. However, given its age and mileage, you should expect to put some work into it. At the very least, you're looking at some serious maintenance to keep it running smoothly. And remember, parts for cars of this era can sometimes be hard to find. As always with classic cars, especially those in this price range, it's crucial to see it in person, take it for a test drive if possible, and maybe have a trusted mechanic give it a once-over. Don't be afraid to ask lots of questions about its history and any known issues. This '79 Buick Regal might not be the most glamorous classic out there, but it's a piece of automotive history that could provide a lot of enjoyment for the right enthusiast. Just go in with your eyes open and your expectations realistic. 10. All right, let's dive deeper into this awesome 1979 Ford Thunderbird. You know, the '79 T-Bird is a pretty special model. It was part of the 7th generation of Thunderbirds, which marked a significant downsizing from its predecessors. Ford was responding to the energy crisis of the 1970s, and this model was their attempt to offer a more fuel-efficient luxury car. Now, about this specific car, that V8 302 engine, also known as the 5.0-liter, was a popular choice back then, offering a good balance of power and efficiency for its time. With 120,000 miles on the clock, it's clear this bird has stretched its wings, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. These engines were built to last, and if it's been well maintained, it could still have plenty of life left in it. The red paint is a bold choice that really suits the T-Bird's sleek lines. And speaking of style, those aftermarket rims could give it a more modern look, while the original rims let you keep it period correct if that's more your thing. It's great to have options. Inside, you're looking at what was considered a luxury interior for its time. If it's indeed in good condition as the seller states, you might find features like power windows, air conditioning, and maybe even the optional power seats or cruise control. The 79 model also introduced a new instrument panel with square gauges, which was quite modern for its time. Now I've got to keep it real with you. At $2,200, this is a steal if everything checks out. But remember, we're talking about a 40-plus-year-old car here. Even if it's in good condition, that doesn't mean perfect. You'll want to check for any rust issues, especially in the frame and floorboards. These cars were known to have some electrical gremlins too, so make sure all the electrics are working. The automatic transmission is likely the Ford C4 or FMX, both of which were sturdy units, but after this many years, it might need some attention. And while the 302 is a reliable engine, at this age, it could be due for a rebuild or at least some serious TLC. But here's the thing. If you're handy with a wrench or don't mind investing a bit in repairs, this could be an amazing project car. The Thunderbird has a huge following, and parts availability is generally pretty good. Plus, these cars have been appreciating in value lately, especially well-maintained examples. So if you're looking for a piece of American automotive history that you can cruise in, tinker with, and potentially see grow in value, this 79 Thunderbird could be your ticket. Just be sure to give it a thorough inspection before you commit. And if you do snap it up, I'd love to see some updates on your new project. 11. We're diving into a real gem on Craigslist, a 1979 Lincoln Continental Mark V. And not just any Mark V, but the Cartier Designer Series. This beauty is up for grabs at $8,500, and let me tell you, it's got some serious swagger. Now, I always shoot straight with you guys, and I've got to say, this listing has me pretty excited. The seller claims this Continental is in like-new condition, which is absolutely jaw-dropping for a car that's over 4 decades old. They're boasting a mere 40,000 miles on the odometer, which, if true, explains a lot about its pristine state. Let's talk about what makes this car special. The Mark V was the epitome of 70s luxury, and the Cartier Designer Series? That was the cream of the crop. We're talking about a car that oozed elegance and status back in its day, and it still turns heads now. Under the hood, you've got a 400 cubic inch V8 engine. This power plant was all about smooth operation and low-end torque, perfect for cruising in style. It's paired with an automatic transmission sending power to the rear wheels, as a proper luxury car should. The seller mentions this Continental came out of California, which is music to a classic car lover's ears. California cars often avoid the rust issues that plague classics from wetter or snowier states. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, that custom paint color. The Cartier editions usually came in a specific color scheme, so a custom paint job could affect its collector value. However, if done well, it might make this Continental stand out even more. The interior is described as spotless, which is crucial for these luxury barges. The Cartier editions had unique interior trim, so if it's truly spotless, you're looking at a real-time capsule. Remember, I always encourage potential buyers to inspect a vehicle thoroughly or get a professional inspection. Even a like-new car from 1979 might need some attention, especially to rubber components or other age-sensitive parts. At $8,500, if this Continental is as described, it could be a stellar deal. These cars have been appreciating, especially well-preserved examples. It's a chance to own a piece of automotive luxury history, a reminder of when American cars were all about size, comfort, and presence. So if you're in the market for a classic luxury cruiser that'll make you feel like $1 million without breaking the bank, this 1979 Lincoln Continental Mark V Cartier Designer Series might just be your ticket to ride. Just imagine yourself behind that big steering wheel, sailing down the boulevard in pure 70s style. 12. We're diving into a real gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1963 Pontiac Parisienne. Now, if you're scratching your head thinking, Parisienne? That doesn't sound like a Pontiac. You're not wrong. This beauty is a piece of Canadian automotive history, and it's currently up for grabs at $11,500 Canadian, or $9,500 USD for our friends south of the border. Let's talk about what makes this car special. The Parisienne was Pontiac's top-of-the-line full-size model in Canada, similar to the Bonneville in the States. This particular example is a rare four-door hardtop, which means you get that sleek, pillarless look when all the windows are down. It's powered by a V8 283 engine, paired with an automatic transmission, and it's got power steering and brakes. Pretty luxurious for 1963. Now, I always aim to keep it real with you guys, and the seller's description has me pretty excited. They're claiming this Parisienne is in excellent condition with only 47,800 miles on the clock. If that's true, we're talking about a seriously well-preserved piece of history here. The seller describes it as a very solid, straight, good-running cruiser, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. One of the coolest things about this Parisienne is that it's been senior-owned and garaged during winters for decades. That's often a recipe for a well-maintained classic. The seller mentions it's a turnkey car that would make a nice clean driver on collector plates, which suggests it's ready to hit the road without much fuss. Now let's talk practicality. This big beauty seats 5 to 6 adults comfortably, or as the seller humorously puts it, a handful of grandkids. With its huge trunk, it's perfect for holiday getaways or golf trips. It's a reminder of when cars were built for comfort and cruising. The price might seem a bit steep at first glance, but consider this. The seller mentions an appraised replacement agreed value range of $20,000 Canadian. If that's accurate, $11,500 starts to look like a pretty good deal for a piece of automotive history in excellent condition. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, I'd always recommend a thorough inspection before pulling the trigger. But if everything checks out, this 1963 Pontiac Parisienne could be an amazing addition to any collection, or a fantastic weekend cruiser. So if you're in the market for a unique, well-preserved piece of Canadian automotive history that'll turn heads and provide a smooth, comfortable ride, this Parisienne might just be your ticket. Just imagine yourself cruising down the highway in this land yacht, feeling like automotive royalty. 113. We're diving into a real gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1960 Dodge Seneca. Now if you're scratching your head thinking, Seneca? That's not a name you hear every day, you're absolutely right. This baby is a piece of Mopar history that doesn't come around often, and it's currently up for grabs at $13,800 OBO in Beaverton, Oregon. Let's talk about what makes this car special. The Seneca was part of the Dodge Dart line in 1960, sitting at the entry level of the full-size Dodge offerings. This particular example is powered by the legendary 225 cubic inch slant 6 engine, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. Now, I know the listing says 4 cylinders, but trust me, that's got to be a typo. The slant 6 is, well, a 6-cylinder engine. The seller claims this Seneca is in excellent condition, and I've got to say, the details they provide are pretty encouraging. With only 6,125 miles on the odometer, this car has barely been broken in. Now, given it's a 60-year-old car, we've got to assume that's 106,125 miles, but even that's not bad for a vehicle of this vintage. What really gets me excited is that the seller says it runs, drives really well, smooth idle. That's music to any classic car lover's ears. They've also mentioned some recent work, a new clutch and battery, which are always good to see. The body and glass are described as really nice, and they've updated the headliner and carpet, which can often be weak points in older cars. Now, I always aim to keep it real with you guys, so let's talk about a few potential issues. The seller mentions the tires could use some air, so you might want to factor in new rubber if you're planning to drive this beauty regularly. Also, while the AM/FM cassette is a nice touch, it's probably not original to the car. But hey, who doesn't love a good mixtape on a cruise? One of the coolest things about this listing is all the extra parts included. You're getting a 2-barrel intake manifold, carb, new alternator with mount and belt, suspension parts, gaskets, and even the original manuals. That's a goldmine for anyone looking to do some tinkering or restoration work. At $13,800 OBO, this isn't a bargain basement price. But for a well-maintained, drivable piece of automotive history, it could be a solid deal. These early 60s Mopars have been appreciating in value, especially unique models like the Seneca. So, if you're in the market for a classic cruiser that'll turn heads and provide a smooth, nostalgic ride, this 1960 Dodge Seneca might just be your ticket. Just imagine yourself cruising down the highway, that slant six humming along, feeling like you've stepped back in time. Now that's what I call living the classic car dream. Remember, the seller says you can easily drive it home. Now that's confidence in a classic. 14. We're diving into a real unicorn that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1974 Chrysler Imperial LeBaron Coupe. Now, hold on to your hats because this isn't just any old LeBaron, it's one of only 57 made that year. Talk about rare. This piece of American luxury history is up for grabs at $13,800, and let me tell you, it's got a story to tell. First things first, I always shoot straight with you guys, and the seller is upfront about this car being in fair condition. But don't let that scare you off. There's a lot to love here. Under the hood, you've got a big block 440 cubic inch V8 with a 4-barrel carb, paired with an automatic transmission. That's some serious muscle for cruising in style. Now, this Imperial has seen some miles, 97,000 to be exact. But that's not bad for a 47-year-old car. It's a third-owner vehicle, which often means it's been cared for rather than passed around. The seller's been busy bringing this beauty back from its slumber. They've replaced a ton of parts: new tires, master cylinder, front calipers, shoes, radiator, water pump, core plugs, belts, hoses, tune-up parts, and even a professionally rebuilt carb. That's a lot of work that you won't have to do. But let's keep it real. This Imperial isn't perfect. It's got a charging issue and an exhaust leak that need attention. The heat and AC aren't working, which could be a project if you want to cruise in all seasons. The paint is mostly original, which likely means it shows its age, and the interior is original too. However, the seller says it runs, drives, and stops well, which is crucial for a car of this vintage. And let's not forget some of the cool features. 4-wheel disc brakes were pretty advanced for 1974. At $13,800, this isn't a cheap project, but remember, you're buying a piece of automotive history here. These Imperial LeBarons were the pinnacle of Chrysler luxury in their day, with build quality that outshone their Dodge and Plymouth siblings. So, if you're in the market for a rare big block collector car that'll turn heads and give you a taste of 70s luxury, this 1974 Imperial LeBaron could be your ticket. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard, that 440 rumbling, feeling like automotive royalty. Sure, it needs some love, but that's part of the classic car experience, right? This is a chance to own and preserve a seriously rare piece of Mopar history. Just be prepared for some tinkering. But hey, that's half the fun with classics. 15. We're diving into a real gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1972 Mercury Cougar XR7 convertible. This beauty is currently up for grabs at $9,200 OBO, and let me tell you, it's got some serious swagger. Now, I always shoot straight with you guys, and this listing has me pretty excited. The seller describes the condition as good, which is impressive for a car that's nearly half a century old. But what really catches my eye is all the work that's been done to this Cougar. Let's start with the heart of the beast. A 351 Cleveland V8 engine paired with a C6 automatic transmission. The seller says the engine was rebuilt just 500 miles ago, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. We're talking new bearings, piston rings, RV cam, polished crankshaft, and a whole lot more. This kitty should purr like it just rolled off the assembly line. The odometer shows 90,612 miles, which the seller claims are original. That's not bad for a 50-year-old car, especially considering all the recent work. Now, let's talk about the looks. This Cougar's sporting a repainted green exterior that the seller says looks good while driving. The interior has been refinished in a ginger color, and you're getting all new seats and door panels. The convertible top is light tan, which should contrast nicely with the green body. But here's where it gets really interesting. The seller claims they've invested over $10,000 in making this Cougar a dependable driver, and they're selling it for $9,200 OBO. That could be a steal, especially when you consider that fully restored examples can go for over $20,000. Now, I always encourage potential buyers to inspect a vehicle thoroughly or get a professional inspection. Even with all the new parts, a 50-year-old car might have some quirks or need some attention. At $9,200, if this Cougar is as described, it could be a stellar deal. You're getting a classic convertible with a freshly rebuilt engine, new interior, and a ton of new parts. It's a chance to own a piece of American automotive history that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank. So, if you're in the market for a classic convertible that'll make you feel like $1 million without emptying your wallet, this 1972 Mercury Cougar XR7 might just be your ticket to ride. Just imagine yourself behind the wheel, top down, that Cleveland V8 rumbling as you cruise down the boulevard. Now that's what I call living the classic car dream. 16. We're diving into a real land yacht that surfaced on Craigslist, a 1978 Cadillac Fleetwood. This behemoth of American luxury is up for grabs at $5,500, and let me tell you, it's got some stories to tell. Now, I always keep it real with you guys, and the seller is upfront about this caddy being in fair condition. But don't let that scare you off. There's a lot of potential here. Under that long hood, you've got the massive 425 cubic inch V8 paired with the bulletproof TH400 transmission. That's a combo that'll cruise all day long. This Fleetwood has seen some miles, 138,000 to be exact, with the odometer having rolled over. But here's the kicker. It was parked in a barn back in 1993 and rescued by the current owner in 2020. Talk about a time capsule. The seller's been busy breathing new life into this old girl. We're talking new brake components all around, new radiator, alternator, carburetor, ignition parts, steering components, shocks, and even 5 new tires. Oh, and did I mention the transmission's been professionally rebuilt with only 1,000 miles on it? That's a big-ticket item you won't have to worry about. But let's keep it real. This caddy isn't perfect. The Landau roof and headliner need attention. There's some rust to deal with, and a few power accessories aren't working. The dash and steering wheel are cracked, which is pretty common for these old luxury barges. The AC isn't working either, so you might be sweating in style for a while. On the plus side, the 8-track AM/FM radio is still kicking, and there's even an aftermarket CB radio and Bluetooth adapter for you modern folks. The seller's added some aftermarket gauges too, so you can keep an eye on the vitals. Now, at $5,500, you're not getting a show car here. But what you are getting is a piece of automotive history that's been brought back from the brink. The seller says it runs and drives strong, and they've even taken it on out-of-state trips. That's pretty impressive for a car that spent nearly 3 decades napping in a barn. So, if you're in the market for a classic American luxury cruiser that'll turn heads and give you a taste of 70s opulence, this 1978 Cadillac Fleetwood could be your ticket. Just imagine floating down the highway, that big V8 humming, feeling like you're piloting a living room on wheels. Sure, it needs some love, but that's part of the classic car experience, right? This is a chance to own and preserve a piece of automotive history without breaking the bank. Just be prepared for some wrenching, and maybe invest in some air fresheners for that vintage barn find aroma. 17. We're diving into a real piece of American muscle that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1966 Chevrolet Bel Air. This beauty is up for grabs at $6,500, and let me tell you, it's got potential written all over it. Now, I always shoot straight with you guys, and this listing is a perfect example of why you need to read between the lines. The seller describes the condition as good, but then goes on to list quite a few issues. So, let's break it down. First, the good stuff. This Bel Air is packing a 454 cubic inch engine paired with a TH350 transmission. That's a potent combination that wasn't stocked for '66, so someone's done some upgrading here. The seller mentions new brakes with less than 100 miles on them and fresh fluids as of June 2024, which I'm assuming is a typo and means 2023. But here's where it gets interesting. The seller is upfront about the car needing lots of little things. The odometer is broken, so the 100,000 miles listed is anyone's guess. The floor shifter is described as a pain, with issues getting into gear. The Speedo is temperamental, and it needs new tires and a battery. Inside, it's clear this Bel Air needs some TLC. The interior needs love, with door panels, headliner, and seats all requiring attention. There's some paint peeling, and as the seller admits, it's only so it's gonna have some rust. Now, don't let all this scare you off. The seller says it runs and drives fine and stops good, which are crucial points for any classic. They've also included most of the trim and a car cover, which are nice bonuses. At $6,500, you're not getting a show car here. What you are getting is a project with tons of potential. The 66 Bel Air is a classic body style, and with that 454 under the hood, you've got the makings of a real street beast. However, the seller recommends trailering it, which suggests it might not be ready for a long drive home. This is definitely a car for someone who's ready to roll up their sleeves and do some work. So, if you're in the market for a classic Chevy project that you can gradually restore while still being able to cruise around a bit, this 1966 Bel Air could be your ticket. Just imagine yourself behind the wheel, that big block rumbling, cruising down the boulevard once you've ironed out those kinks. It'll take some work, but hey, that's half the fun with classics, right? Just be prepared for some wrenching and maybe budget for a new shifter right off the bat. 18. We're diving into a real gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle. This beauty is up for grabs at $12,500. And let me tell you, it's got some serious potential. Now, I always shoot straight with you guys, and this listing has me pretty excited. The seller describes the condition as excellent, and from the details provided, it sounds like they're not exaggerating. Let's break it down. First off, we're looking at a factory V8 automatic car. That's a great starting point for any classic muscle car build. The seller claims there's no rust and the body is straight, which is huge for a car of this vintage. They've gone the extra mile with an epoxy primer, which is a solid foundation for whatever paint job you might have in mind. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The seller has already done some serious work. We're talking powder-coated 15-inch rally wheels, new tires, a new rear bumper, and a new trunk pan with spatter coating. They also mentioned solid floors and nice original rear quarters, music to any Chevelle lover's ears. All the glass is tinted and in good shape, and all the window trim is present. That's a big deal because tracking down original trim can be a real headache. At $12,500, this isn't a bargain basement price, but for a solid 67 Chevelle with no rust and some key upgrades already done, it could be a great deal. These cars have been appreciating in value, especially clean examples. Now keep in mind, the car is described as epoxy primed, which means it's not wearing its final paint job yet. That could be a plus if you've got a specific color in mind, but it also means there's still work to be done before this Chevelle is ready for the show circuit. So if you're in the market for a classic muscle car project that's already got a solid foundation, this 1967 Chevelle could be your ticket. Just imagine yourself cruising down the strip, that V8 rumbling, turning heads left and right. It'll take some work to get it there, but with a rust-free body and solid bones, you're already halfway home. This could be the start of something really special. 19. We're diving into a real gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1985 Mercury Grand Marquis. Now, this isn't just any Grand Marquis, it's a two-door model, which is about as rare as hen's teeth. The seller is asking $11,000 OBO, and let me tell you, this car has a story to tell. First off, let's talk about what makes this car special. According to the Marty report, which is included, always a plus. This is one of only 103 made in this specific model and trim. That's some serious rarity, folks. Under the hood, you've got the reliable 302 Ci V8 with throttle body injection, paired with an automatic overdrive transmission. This combo was known for its smooth operation and decent fuel economy for a big car of its era. Now, I always shoot straight with you guys, and this listing has me pretty excited. The seller describes the condition as excellent, and from the details provided, it sounds like they're not exaggerating. The odometer shows just 22,978 miles, which is incredibly low for a 38-year-old car. The interior is described as clean and shiny, with blue leather and blue carpet. The seller even mentions it still has that new car smell. How often do you hear that about a car from the 80s? The previous owner, the seller's father, clearly loved this car and took great care of it. He replaced the rear brake calipers, serviced the AC, which still blows icy cold with R12 refrigerant, and even put on new tires in 2021, despite the old ones showing no wear. One of the coolest things about this listing is the car's history. It was originally purchased in Akron, Ohio, and had professional undercoating done, a big plus for preserving the body. It was garage kept and meticulously maintained by its first owners before the seller's father acquired it. At $11,000 OBO, this isn't a cheap 80s car, but you're not buying just any 80s car. You're getting a rare, extremely well-preserved piece of American luxury car history. These big, comfortable cruisers are becoming increasingly appreciated by collectors. Now, keep in mind, while this car sounds to be in fantastic condition, it's still a 38-year-old vehicle. You might want to budget for some preventative maintenance if you plan to drive it regularly. So, if you're in the market for a classic luxury cruiser that'll turn heads and provide a smooth, comfortable ride, this 1985 Mercury Grand Marquis might just be your ticket. Just imagine yourself floating down the highway in this magic carpet ride, as the previous owner called it. It's a chance to own a piece of automotive history that's been lovingly preserved. Now that's what I call living the classic car dream. 20. We're diving into a real unicorn that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1964 Studebaker Avanti R2. Now hold on to your hats because this isn't just any Avanti, it's one of only 281 R2 models produced for that year. This piece of automotive history is up for grabs at $2,500, and let me tell you, it's got a story to tell. First things first, I always shoot straight with you guys, and this listing is a perfect example of why you need to read between the lines. The seller describes the condition as good, but then goes on to list quite a few issues. So, let's break it down. The good stuff first. This is a factory supercharged, matching numbers R2 model with the original engine. It's got the coveted factory tilt steering, power disc brakes, and twin traction rear end. The seller even has the documented factory build sheet. That's gold for collectors. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This Avanti is a non-runner that's been sitting in a garage since 1992. That's 32 years of slumber. It suffered some front-end damage when it rolled down a driveway and hit a garage, so there's fiberglass work needed on the front fenders. The interior needs work too, with the driver's seat requiring fiberglass repair and new upholstery. But hey, it comes with a new 16-piece black carpet set. Here's the kicker. This Avanti needs a full restoration. We're talking engine work, brakes, tires, windshield, new paint, the works. But the seller is including a ton of new and used parts to help with the restoration, which is a nice bonus. Now at $2,500, you're not getting a turnkey classic here. What you are getting is a rare, rust-free, thanks to its California heritage, project car with enormous potential. Fully restored, these supercharged Avantis can fetch serious money. So, if you're in the market for a unique restoration project with serious collector potential, this 1964 Studebaker Avanti R2 could be your ticket. Just imagine yourself cruising down the strip in this futuristic-looking 60s icon, that supercharged V8 singing its song. It'll take some serious work to get there, but man, what a journey that would be. Remember, this is a chance to own and preserve a seriously rare piece of automotive history. Just be prepared for some major wrenching, and maybe start making friends with fiberglass repair experts. But hey, that's all part of the classic car experience, right?